Now we're going to be checking out more TexTalks BattleTech, the turning point at Twycross, which is incredibly relevant considering Mechwarrior 5 Clans just came out, and it's covering this. I'd almost want to say at the end, there's a sponsored by Paradox Gaming, the people who brought you Mechwarrior 5 Clans, because it's literally the same time period. In fact, I'm glad I only did roughly an hour and a half of Mechwarrior 5 at the beginning of the stream because I could, also because that was fun. Because now we can move into this part, because we're covering the aspects of this that are directly relevant to the game. So it's pretty useful to finish this off, is what I would say, except I don't know how far we're going to get into it. I'm just going to have fun with this one because it's Mechwarrior 5, it's Tex. I'm going to love this. It's the Black Pants Legion. If you haven't already, go subscribe. These guys are awesome. Let's jump into it. Because again, they is awesome. The last stand of the Tamar Marsh Militia.
In March of 3050, Clan Jade Falcon had struck the Lyran portion of the Federated Commonwealth and easily smashed the planetary defenders they encountered.
Because they're still coming off the old method of not being a meritocracy here. This would have been what would have been Steiner prior.
Who were swiftly overrun by the awesome intensity of the Clanner war machine. Worlds fell in rapid succession, with few defenders living to tell the tale. In June of that year, the planet Twycross fell to the very elite of Clan Jade Falcon, the Falcon Guards. At that time, the planet was lightly defended by the Tamar March Militia, which was a unit with near no combat experience, and at the very best, second-rate equipment. While unable to deliver a line fight to the clans, the militia quickly changed tactics, and instead wisely decided to go asymmetrical in their response. Through guerrilla warfare, the militia was able to buy enough time for a semi-orderly evacuation and to get much-needed intelligence off-world.
So it's not like the last ones where they just bled the clans. This one actually had legitimate tactical advantages by getting people off with information. That's actually kind of fascinating. Because an under-equipped militia being able to hold off the clans in general sounds kind of fascinating. Proving the point that as much as big stompy mechs are everything, infantry with big enough guns and range and the ability to leave immediately and not be picked up on sensors is very useful.
While not historically significant on the battlefield, the bravery of the Tamar March Militia offered a chance at success, which would in part help turn the tide of the overall war. Their experience with Jade Falcon tactics, mechs, equipment, and combat capabilities would provide the Inner Sphere insight they had lacked, and thus laid the foundation for a successful counterattack. Soon after, under Morgan Hasek Davion, the AFFC gathered...
Wait, Hasek Davion? Morgan Hasek. I feel like I should know that name, but I don't think he's the one who is the leader at this point, was he?
On Sudaden to plan a strike in order to show the clanners that nobody just waltzes into the Inner Sphere and gets away with it. Under his command were reinforcements summoned from powerful mercenary units and further bolstered by freshly mobilized house military forces.
Also, the fact that there's clearly... This is the Wolf... Wait. That's not Clan Wolf. That's a Wolf Dragoon. Ill Clan Warhammer.
Victor Steiner
or was that Clan
Davion,
Wolf?
who had been evacuated from Trail 1 earlier
Yep, there's Steiner Davion.
Joined the contingent at this time and was transferred to the 10th Lyran Guards, a unit which had not seen meaningful action since the Succession Wars, but was nonetheless shuffled into the strategic deck out of grim necessity. Exhaustively, the command staff pored over every scrap of intel that had escaped the clan invasion corridor and thoroughly reviewed the battle reports taken from units who had worked to their very end to provide useful information against their invaders. It was soon realized that there was no easy way to counter the clans in a peer engagement, or to even identify and prepare for where they would strike next. So,
why not
in typical
prepare?
FedCom fashion,
Because it wouldn't be enough
they
damage,
decided to go on the offensive. Reverting to pre-succession war thinking, they realized their counterattacks in this war would rely on numbers to overcome the differences in technology or lack of power projection.
Wait, so when he says pre-succession war thinking, does he mean by actually having the numbers to carry out a fight? Yeah, probably, because succession war was we lost all the everything, so we need to be a lot more able to not lose the everything. Because the succession wars were literally a series of breaking every possible way you had to replicate technology you had just lost.
Thus, offenses would consist of entire
divisions,
not mere regiments or piecemeal mercenary deployments. Accordingly, it was
At some point, it's less this is a good mech and more there are so many bullets coming at you that you cannot survive the literal weight of fire, let alone the fact that it's being fired at you.
Understood that this would be a war of attrition, one where the clanners would be ground under the weight of inner sphere madmen supported by the greatest military-industrial complex in the galaxy. The last stand of the Tamar March militia would provide them the means.
Oh?
Twycross was home to a weather pattern known as the Diabolus, which was a massive and continuous sandstorm so severe that it potentially neutralized any range or detection advantages that clanner technology provided.
Oh.
On any other world, the FedCom forces on the offense would be detected and immediately outmaneuvered by the clans,
they couldn't be
who
seen.
could bring accurate firepower to bear at greater ranges than their inner sphere counterparts. However, here was a battleground where they might be able to even the odds by using the storm as cover, and thus Twycross immediately went from case study to prime objective thanks to its remarkably terrible weather. Additionally, because of Twycross's appallingly permanent sandstorm, most of the population lived underground, and thus losses to its cities or vital industries could be minimized.
See, this is something I really wish BattleTech talked more about, the location of cities, because in general, I'm used to the Mechwarrior 5 BattleTech side of, hey, here's a random generic city on top of a place. We're going to do that. But talking about building into the crust, showing that, this is an entire universe where terraforming is possible, if slow. You don't see some of this technology being built up, and I wish there was more about it. They hint at a lot of it, but they never really go into the detail because it's not the admitted focus of BattleTech in general.
Regardless of the forces allocated to the operation or how they chose to fight. This meant that the FedCom task force could go gloves off and burn half the planet
because no one would be there to be burned.
No concern for collateral damage. The last intelligence from Twycross has suggested that at most, a single clanner regiment was holding the world as a defensive garrison. And so, with no better options apparent, the operation was greenlit. Little did they know how wrong they were.
That there was... Wait, does he mean wrong they were by not just a single regiment? Oh. Ooh, Mateus, he's mentioned check the novels? Ooh, I do need to do that. Most of my intermission... My engagement with BattleTech is through the novels. Sorry, not the novels, the games, which are very much biased towards one specific aspect. Breaking space news. The network.
Hello, this intermission is brought to you by 30th Century Fox, your source for BattleTech news and entertainment. Welcome, I am Paul, and I'll be your host for the intermission. The countdown timer in the bottom lets those during the premiere know how long they have to get more whiskey, popcorn, or bacon. First off,
I did not think to bring bacon. That's on me. I made a mistake.
I'd like to thank you for showing up at the premiere, which as always is raising the roof for charity. What you may not know is that for the last 5 years, Tex and the Black Pants Legion have raised roughly $500,000 US in charity.
God damn!
Lives, homes, and even a Christmas or two. So if you want to help, the donation bar is over there on the right.
Go Tex.
As for news, Tex and the Depth Stream on WBPL 76 on Twitch most Fridays.
What the
boy.
fuck?
What?
That fucking Prius didn't even stop. It just ran itself up the side of my fucking truck like a drunk using the guardrail.
So, standard driver, got it.
Wait, what lane's he in?
He's in the middle lane.
He's in the middle lane, huh?
Yeah.
Oh God! Well, that's one way to do it.
Well done. Goddamn straight. All right. That's called teamwork.
Crow and Huts, the editing duo,
What the
stream
hell?
on Courtesy Flush, which is typically insane.
Oh, he's moving.
What game is this?
You know, the only way to cut this is to get found out at the last minute. No! Why did I jinx it? Why did I jinx it?
Why did you jinx it?
Yeah. I have no idea what game that
BCL
is.
has a podcast and a website, both of which are very above average. If you want to help pay for artists, keep the production running, here's the Patreon. Keep in mind, Tex just put it back into production, and it took a concentrated effort to the entire community for 11 years to force him to take a cut. He likes making stuff more than he likes making money.
Yeah, I've actually talked to Tex about this one, and his reasoning does make sense. I still wish he would take something from it because it feels wrong for him not to be compensated. But his entire thing is corrupting influence of money, essentially. Beyond that, it's his to explain, and he could probably do a better job of it. And I get his point. Maybe I not agree, but he makes a valid point.
And if you're interested in weekly BattleTech news about all that's going on in our fandom, please check us out, link below, at 30th Century Fox.
What if they
And
could actually
now,
steal that title?
Back to the show.
The Fox part's definitely taken, but 30th Century might not be at this point. Unless they really thought ahead and actually claimed it already. Also, Hobbit, you're mentioning people are being stupid about the Warhammer Animation Awakening? Yeah, I kind of figured as much. That's why I don't listen to the comments a lot of the time. Chapter 7, The Order of Battle.
The Federated Commonwealth hurriedly assembled a task force from available units, with many of its components freshly mobilized and thus very green. Relying entirely on unproven assets would likely be a repeat of disaster, and so the task force needed something with a steely backbone. Thus, they called upon the toughest mercenaries they had on contract, the Kell Hounds.
Oh, just going to say right now, at least in Mechwarrior 5 Mercenaries, which that distinction does matter now, the hardest missions were working with green troops, because it doesn't matter how ungodly amazing and outmodded your mech is, that you can solo everyone. It doesn't matter, because there's going to be one person in a light mech who decides to go into punching range every time, and that's the fail condition. Every goddamn time. Hell, that happened in the BattleTech RTS version as well.
Formed in 3010, the Kell Hounds had seen action in the Fourth Succession War, as well as the War of 3039, and had been in regular contact with the clans throughout the invasion.
Oh.
Having lost a battalion the previous year fighting in the periphery, the Kell Hounds...
What mech is this one? It almost looks like they took a Mad Cat's like a Mad Cat's cockpit and strapped it on top of an Awesome. No, because that's not an Awesome's shoulders. I don't know what the hell that is.
were likely in this for more than money. Hardened Kell Hound veterans under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Allard
that's how you
would
said that?
take
I was gonna
center
say Allrad.
stage in this fight. And knowing full well that this could be a monumental bloodbath, they were financially compensated ahead of time for any losses they would take. In mercenaries' terms, this is as good as it gets. The 9th FedCom Regimental Combat Team was chosen to accompany them, as they had trained in the harsh storms of the Kimball system prior to the mobilization.
So they would already know how
thus
to
were
behave in that
adequately
environment.
prepared
Nice.
for the unique weather conditions of Twycross. Their mission was to bait the trap. Upon landfall, they would be deployed further afield in the Diabolus, and then use the storm for concealment. Proceeding undercover, the 9th RCT would plant mech decoys around their landing spot on the
They're actually taking a tactic from World War II on this one, where they just pretended to have planes and ships and an airfield to make people think it was real, but it was actually on British shores, completely faked. Nice. Also, the animations Tex is using here, his team is doing a really good job on these.
plane of curtains, and then hopefully
Gives it
draw
the
the clanners
sci-fi
in,
aspect with the
where the
wibbliness,
rest of the FedCom
because it looks like
forces
it's a
could then join
projection.
battle and try to overwhelm the Clanner garrison on more favorable terms. The 10th Lyran Guards would be the task force's backup and strategic reserve. The 10th Guards are a historically significant unit, called at one time the Thundering Elephants. Composed of hand-picked applicants who were then extensively screened for loyalty, the 10th Guards was historically the command granted to future Archons of the Lyran Commonwealth.
Oh!
However, the 10th had not seen action since the Fourth
So
Succession
it's
War,
an honor post,
and
not
did
a fighting
participate
post.
in the War of 3039. So by this time, they were considered extremely green and ultimately untested. While indeed incredibly inexperienced compared to the Kell Hounds, the 10th was full of exceptionally loyal, well-trained Mechwarriors driving freshly mobilized battle mechs.
And that's the Lyran thing. Their big problem is untrained, unskilled people in charge because of other reasons. But if you have a bunch of people who are trained and are skilled, I mean, that already negates the biggest problem with anything Lyran.
Their incorporation into the task force suggests that any shortfall of demonstrated aptitude would be overcome by their strength in numbers. In short, typical Steiner battle tactics would apply.
Fuck
They
all the
would
shit.
be the
Yeah.
clumsy hand of a drunk and furious god should the situation call for it. Commanding part of the 10th
Wait. Did that on the side say damn dangerous? Oh, Dawn Chargers. Sure. Sherazad. I thought it said damn dangerous. That, because the O's I thought were D's, and that's on me. That's disappointing.
of a drunk and furious god should the situation call for it. Please still stinging from his defeat at Trell 1 and very much
Steiner?
seeking to prove himself on the field of battle. As well, the 10th had a secret weapon in Kai Allard Liao.
Oh,
As a battalion commander, Kai
Wait,
was
what?
a graduate of the New Avalon Military Academy, where he'd first
I'm sorry. Liao. That was not the person I was expecting here in Steiner territory.
met Victor, and they'd since become friends. Self-effacing and ever humble, Kai demonstrated incredible talent throughout his academy years, and thus was an able member of the 10th, if not one of their finest at that point in time. While the Federated Commonwealth put their plan in motion, there was a significant
the good Liao.
complication. The Clanners were not as weak as intelligence had earlier suggested, as the forces presumed to have left the planet
Weren't.
indeed had not.
Oh.
After evacuating as many as they could, the last remnants of the Tamar March militia on Twycross had not stopped fighting, and as one of their final acts, they succeeded in destroying a Jade Falcon ammunition depot.
Oh!
This modest act of insurgency prompted Star Colonel Adler Malthus, commander of the Falcon Guards Cluster, to delay his departure and handover to second-line garrison forces. He believed there was still work to be done on the planet, and so he missed his jump ship window. To better understand his thoroughness and determination as a battlefield commander, we must examine his combat record to this point in history,
So they're
which
going with
was
the
the
main
stuff
troops
of
still.
legend. I cannot understate the proven lethality of the Falcon Guards. Of the 12 entire FedCom and mercenary regiments the Jade Falcons destroyed by this point in time, a total of 4 were annihilated by the Falcon Guards alone. Malthus was their ferocious leader with a near-flawless combat record.
So essentially, he was a Mechwarrior pilot out of the games who just happened to do all that crazy shit in lore as well. Okay. Good to know.
Across many difficult campaigns, each in their own right, worthy of glorious song and story. It was he
When you're not the
who
protagonist.
led the Falcon Guards to victory on Barcelona, where his breakthrough in supporting the 9th Talon Cluster had utterly shattered the 17th Sky Rangers. On Toland, his forces annihilated the 2nd Regiment of the 12th Star Guards. And on Apollo, he'd fought the 2nd Gravewalkers and the Apollo Militia both, and won handily. This was as well perhaps his most notable achievement, as the weather of Apollo was hellish and the defenses of that world significant. The
So he would
extensive
advantage of
defensive
knowing the weather
fortifications of
pattern.
Apollo were originally modeled off the Castle Bryan fortresses used by the SLDF, and their construction on Apollo had been ordered by Stephen Amaris himself. And even with the odds so stacked against his success, Malthus swiftly conquered that world.
And there's definitely someone in there who pointing out he just conquered a world with an Amaris designed castle. Yeah, that would do it.
All the same, ever resourceful, bold, and brave, he was a fierce commander. And the Falcon Guards were perhaps the greatest part of Jade Falcon's Gamma Galaxy, and thus, very likely, some of the best fighters in the Inner Sphere at that point in time. And the Federated Commonwealth Task Force, already en route, had no idea they were there.
Yeah, that sounds like it could be a problem. Chapter 8, 10th September 3050.
The AFFC task force utilized a pirate jump point to better conceal their approach to the planet, and soon after arrival made their landing on 10th September 3050. The initial landing went well, with the raging sandstorm of the Diabolus providing much needed
But they have a
cover
guy who
for the
knows how to
invaders,
fight in a sandstorm.
though it soon caused havoc by breaking their lines of communication. While the 9th RCT set out to lay the trap, the Kell Hounds mustered their forces on the plain of Curtains and were joined by Lyran Guard armored elements as backup. The plan was simple enough
see everyone moving around in
to
the animation.
give battle on the plain, and then once the Diabolus covered them, treat the Clanner garrison to a close quarters beatdown. The Green 10th Lyran RCT was to be held in reserve to support the flanks, reinforce the Kell Hounds, or fill in the line as casualties mounted. In short, they were ad hoc reserves and would appropriately serve as attritionable forces if required. But as they deployed, there was a weakness in the plan, and potentially a catastrophic one. While the mountains bordering the plains provided favorable terrain to this encirclement strategy, there was a gap. A winding canyon existed through the Windbreak Mountains, one wide enough to support an entire column of mechs plus support. If the Clanner garrison managed to exploit this, the FedCom forces on the plain could be attacked from behind, and with the storm playing absolute havoc on communications, they'd have no idea until it was far too late. To secure
And that definitely
this potential
happened.
weak point, the 10th Guards sent a company of mechs and most of its infantry forces to defend the canyon, hoping to defeat or delay an enemy approach.
I mean, unless that infantry came with all the dynamite to cave in the sides of the canyon on the people, that is probably not going to be enough, and elementals are probably around them to cover that as well.
Should one appear. Once there, combat engineers immediately formed a contingency plan to destroy the pass.
Oh, never mind, they did it.
Glycerin explosives, should anything attack through the canyon.
But
soon after putting their plans in motion,
so they did actually do the plan to
Falcon
dock up the
garrison
cliffside.
had been spotted, likely drawn to the plains by intermittent sensor ghosts from the 9th's forces milling about in the storm. Scouting units had also confirmed what earlier intelligence had suggested, that second-line mechs were indeed among the makeup of the Jade Falcon garrison forces. But troublingly, a number of Omni-mechs were also observed, which suggested this battle would be far from easy,
So it's not just
and
the
that their
people ambushed.
intelligence was dangerously out of
I
date.
think that's a gladiator and
The
executioner there.
storm they had chosen for cover did not choose sides, and in its intensity, communication with forces stationed at the canyon soon lost contact with the task force on the plain.
So everyone fighting the desperate battle in the storm is unaware they're about to be flanked.
Further forward,
Because I think it's already
9th
covered.
RCT entirely disappeared in the storm. Thanks to the collapse of the communication network, the Kell Hounds and most of the 10th were effectively on their own, with no easy means to signal reinforcements or to adequately coordinate response. With battle soon approaching,
Is that a literal Hawaiian shirt underneath all the straps but above body armor? Okay, sure. Wow. This is something I thought Tex would do, but this is the old art style he usually pulls up, so that's just someone doing it. Good to know.
and under a communications nightmare, the AFFC had to act quickly in order to prevent a potential disaster. To ensure
they
that the
able?
clanners were not encircling them, Commandant Steiner Davion sent his trusted friend, Lieutenant Kai Allard Liao, with a medium lance to the canyon.
Oh, yeah,
His
he
orders
did.
were to make contact with forces in Sector 0227, where a
Hatchetman.
mobile hospital had been set up, and then take charge and report back the situation there. Hopefully once there, Kai would report back that the canyon was secure, and thus the task force could press on with their mission as planned. The Kell Hounds, likely worried the 10th Lyran Guards had no backbone, sent picket forces to the rear of their formation, hoping to provide some semblance of a warning if Clan Jade Falcon had indeed broken through, or perhaps to act as blocking forces should they decide to buckle and flee. Soon enough, they would have their answer.
I think it's partially just knowing that this is not the final fight, so it's going to be a loss somehow. And partially the music Tex is pulling in that sounds so incredibly melancholic. It seems like something you play on the night before a battle where you know everyone is about to get slaughtered horribly, which we know isn't the case because the Davion does survive later. But still, I have no idea about the Liao, so he's probably going to die horribly and cause some kind of blood feud with the rest of Liao, which really wouldn't matter. I think most of their heyday is kind of past them at this point. They just kind of are a shadow of themselves constantly for the rest of all of BattleTech, as far as I know. And this is Chapter 9. No plan survives first contact with the enemy.
The Falcon Guards had stationed themselves at the Twycross
They
starport
actually
near
have a
the city
bird
of
style,
Gamora,
okay.
eagerly awaiting off-world transport to take them to their next conquest. Once they heard that garrison forces of the Jade Falcon Airier had spotted unknown invaders on the Plain of Curtains, the Falcon Guard mounted up and swiftly moved to engage. Their plan of attack was simple. They would proceed through the canyons of the Windbreak Mountains,
The people who are going to
smash
flank.
any forces there, and then act as a hammer to the Airie's anvil in order to swiftly encircle the invasion force on the plains, and then to destroy them in one fell swoop. The Falcon Guards drove their 45 Omnimechs toward the fight, with a screening force of elementals deployed far ahead. Their screening force would identify and engage, if not eliminate, problematic targets.
Wait, a screening force of elementals ahead. Does that mean they're relying on elemental speed? So they're going pretty reasonably slow there. Elementals aren't slow on their own, right? But a battle mech running flat out is way faster. It's one of the reasons, one of the tactics for an elemental is to have them hitch on to a mech and then do that, which it's actually really fun. I'm a monster, but I really do love doing that. I'm terrible at it. It's never worked out well, but it's fun.
Prior to the Omnimech's arrival, hopefully paving the way for a swift victory. The elementals of the Falcon Guards were excellent combatants, with a long list of victories to their already impressive battle record. Upon encountering the Lyran infantry stationed at the canyon, they leapt into action and quickly
The infantry
began to
is
slaughter
not
them.
up to par on
The
this.
elementals of the Falcon Guards were a worst-case scenario for the Innersphere infantry station.
So
at
they're
the
probably going to
canyon.
take down the
As the battle
explosives, right?
unfolded, Jade Falcon elementals quickly identified and killed FedCom command elements, destroyed their heavy equipment, and scattered the defenders in a matter of moments. In their ruthless efficiency, they had neutralized the combat engineers assigned to destroy the canyon, Thus, they
It's
had
not gonna
paved the
blow.
way for Malthus's march to glory. Kai Alarm Liao had arrived at Sector
late.
0227 just as things began to collapse. His own family mech, the infamous Yinlo Wang, a centurion named after an ancient god of death.
You can find this mech in BattleTech, or sorry, in Mechwarrior 5 Mercenaries. I'm pretty sure this is actually where Tex even got this image from. Although probably not, because I don't remember the spike gauntlets being in it. But yeah, I'm pretty sure this is one that you can get there. Although, for all I know, you can get it there because I got a mod that allowed it being put in. Either way, it's a Centurion, and they probably need something a lot more, oh god, why are there all the death here style mech? So, Assault.
Had been lost on the way to the battle, thanks to Lyran bureaucratic incompetence.
Oh, so the mech
Instead,
survived.
He piloted a loner hatchet man, and as he arrived with his borrowed machine,
lone hatchet
he
man.
quickly understood that things were going to hell.
Yeah.
Lyran infantry were swiftly routing after being torn limb from limb.
You know, I thought a Centurion, which admittedly is the medium equivalent of an Atlas, it just does good for its size, like an Irby does. A Hatchetman is not that. That is, oh, yeah. That is, why? They're not durable enough to survive getting into melee. Their melee is a weapon base, which is fine. But it's like a glass cannon that can't fire a shot.
And it looked like his reporting objective, the hospital, was soon to be overrun.
Oh, it's
While
not
the
dead yet.
Explosives were indeed already planted at the canyon, the loss of the combat engineers and their detonator prevented them from being triggered to seal the
Can
approach.
someone still do it on their
Kai
own?
likely knew that elementals were just the first wave of clanner reinforcements, and that more trouble would arrive soon to potentially doom them all. By every measure, it was immediately apparent that command and control were seemingly lost, and so Kai felt compelled to act. He quickly took charge and offered the rest of his lance to help evacuate the surviving forces, while he alone
And getting
would
them out of
endeavor
the
to buy
ambush.
the necessary time in order to save lives.
What? How?
Dr. Lear, in charge of the field hospital at Sector 0227, desperately tried to protest relocation, as her staff was inundated with casualties, and many would soon die without first being stabilized.
Okay, 1. 2, pilot cockpit. I heard some mechs did this, but I don't think I've actually encountered any mechs that did that yet. 2, love the art. Also, that there's less detail on him because he's the secondary person who's muted more into the background, while her colors are a lot darker because she's the focal point. Just really good art.
So,
Keep meaning to buy this
in
guy's
order to
prints.
convince her, Kai offered to let her join him in the cockpit's jump seat,
Oh!
which amazingly, she accepted.
Oh, that's the doctor. Wait, join in the jump seat. I guess this is the spare jump seat in the back of them?
Kai then told the ranking Lyran infantry commander, a sergeant, to grab as many of the surviving troops as he could for a most desperate mission. Their orders would be to find the
Strung to the
combat
helmets.
engineer's detonator and seal the canyon at all costs. As they worked toward this objective, Kai would provide cover as best possible by taking the fight to the elementals. And so, Kai Allard Liao walked forward into history. Outnumbered by elite combatants, he fought like a man possessed, rapidly exhausting his ammunition, and then immediately thereafter, wading into melee combat. He took heavy damage for his brave efforts.
He went into melee with elementals. If this doesn't end with him then dying horribly but gloriously, I will be surprised. Because if you can take pot shots at elementals at range, that's not their specialty. Their specialty is getting on the mech and fucking it up. So going into melee and not immediately followed by the words, "and then he died horribly," is impressive. God damn.
Losing a laser and having tons of armor torn from his machine, and yet against an onslaught of elementals, he fought on.
These things
Through
tear mechs
berserk
apart.
effort, He scattered the enemy before him, who were surprised, if not shocked, that just one mech, one madman
in a mech that, admittedly, for melee is probably the best choice, but for survival is not. To give you an idea, if you don't know what an elemental does, at least on the tabletop, their entire point is, I am now going to render your entire mech useless by fucking you up. Getting there is the hard part, but if you're already there, like in melee combat, yeah, no, you're fucked. And he decided to get into that range and then fucked them up instead.
Had the means
Did they take him as a
mayhem
bondsman or something?
to stop them. Onward he fought, blazing a path of destruction through the enemy, swinging at anything his guns couldn't hit. And through furious application of directed violence, he broke their resolve and sent the surviving elementals running to regroup.
Oh. I thought this was going to be, and then he died gloriously. No, apparently he actually made elementals retreat. Elementals, the people who I might bitch and moan about some of the genetic superiority of the pilots being like, okay, yeah, the ability to hold their bladders, they don't have to pee when, just installing the device is not going to weigh so much that it needs to matter. At worst, you just jettison it. It doesn't matter. But no, the elementals are also at the level of, oh God, they're basically space marines. A little less engaged, but it's at a closer level than most other sci-fi settings get to without actually having space marines. And he broke that's goddamn.
However brave Kai had been, though, the battle was not yet won.
This is probably where he dies.
And far worse, while the elementals had fought him, they had also killed the men sent to retrieve the detonator. And just then, things went from bad to worse, as advancing through the canyon were the 45 Omni-Mechs of the Falcon Guard in double column. As they came into view, Kai realized his brief victory was soon to be overshadowed by near certain defeat.
Yeah.
It was, by all means, now a truly hopeless scenario.
And he doesn't
Kai
have the
was
detonator.
seemingly alone versus one of the greatest concentrations of clanner Omni-Mechs yet encountered by the Inner Sphere. He stood there with a near-broken machine, no ammunition, and facing perhaps his imminent death. The Falcon Guards had known no defeat, and charging forward, their hearts were ready for glory. And yet Kai did not run. Instead, he gathered himself and broadcast to the clanners a short challenge that shall live on in history.
He actually knew to do a patch all.
I am Kai Alor Liao. I'm a killer of men. This pass is mine to ward. I offer those who wish to challenge me a warrior's death, but I beg an indulgence of those who accept my offer. Your smaller companions have forced me to exhaust my autocannon ammunition, and they destroyed one of my lasers.
So he's making a play to honor, which they might know about at this point, but he's not phrasing it as a battle because he might not know about that yet because they're still getting the information out. So is he just lucking into a correct way to challenge that they'll honor? And it's exactly the type of force that would do that.
I have only this club with which to defend myself, and I will kill you all, alone or in groups.
There was a moment
God
of
damn!
pause for Kai.
Oh, wow. And against anyone else, this wouldn't work because no one in the Inner Sphere would honor that. And there's a bunch of clans that wouldn't honor that. I think Jade Falcon might be one of them. Partially because they just
like an
got
eternity.
pissed off to him,
This
saying he
was
would
an
kill them
act
all
of
in
mad
groups.
Defiance. Nothing more than a crazy plan to buy time
But
or
it
go out
worked.
on his own limited terms. From the clanner perspective,
He just
however,
issued a batch all.
this had not been seen as a mere challenge, but in fact, a very awkward batch-all.
So confirming he didn't actually know what he was doing. He just happened to do it right. wonder if Falkton is aware of this when he made his decisions for how to act on everything later.
And clanners being clanners, they accepted his invitation to personal combat. Honor demanded nothing less. Star Colonel Malthus came forward in his summoner in order to personally handle this contest. For him, this was routine business, and very likely the first kill of many this day. Kai knew full well he would soon die if the fight was fair, and so he ensured it would not be.
What?
Kai had his passenger, Dr. Lear, get out of her seat and then instructed her on how to pull the magnetic containment circuits from the Hatchetman's fusion engine. These parts keep the sun inside the power plant behaving, and Kai's intention was to misbehave. As the doctor worked, Kai went to war.
This is going to be one of those moments where I'm going to go, oh God, that's not how fusion works. It's a common BattleTech thing where fusion engines explode. The way fusion works is if you fail to contain it, it immediately loses all energy and just sputters out uselessly. Fission blows up all the shit. But they explicitly use fusion, and they explicitly do explosions because, to quote the writer, it's cool. And admittedly, I stand by that decision. If you're explicitly doing something you know is wrong because it is better set piece, but you know it's wrong, not that you're just ignorant of it, I actually have some credits with that one. And it's like, you know what? It's dumb, but it's the dumb I really can get behind.
He sidestepped the first blow of the summoner and then swung into melee. But the near-crippled Hatchetman was already doomed, as Malthus was a truly excellent pilot commanding a fresh Omnimech. As Malthus aimed to crush the Hatchetman's head and thus extinguish this foolish challenger, the doctor shouted she had completed her task by tearing the last circuit out. And as the Hatchetman's ejection system blasted the doctor and Kai away from the stricken mech, its fusion reactor went critical. At point-blank range, the blast instantly enveloped the summoner, which then sympathetically detonated, and that catastrophic eruption of energy then triggered the explosives planted earlier by the combat engineers. Chain reactions continued.
Because explosives do trigger explosions sometimes.
Down the walls of the canyon,
that's actually pretty realistic.
Blasting tons
I mean, whether it would work or not, who knows?
Rock from the canyon walls, which then came crashing down in waves of crushing debris. And as such, Kylard Liao buried the Falcon Guards.
Oh dear God, I'm rooting for Liao. He's glorious. That is awesome. Oh, dude. Oh, I do have to cut this one here because I want to check out other things today. But goddamn, that was awesome. Minus the little part I already talked about how that's not how fusion works. But who cares? Because it was awesome. And literally, it's the reason for it. I'm going to stick by it. Does it need to make sense? No, it makes perfect sense in the sense of rule of cool. And I stand by that rule, damn it. Oh, oh, Tex, between that, the music, the art, I've been meaning to buy prints from this guy for a long time. I need to go look up his socials and find out where to get them. I keep forgetting because I get distracted easily, but I need to do that. And to quote Hurricane in the chat, the Falcon Guard fucked around and they found out. Anyway, Saddleback, welcome back in. Yep, you're back from a chorus concert? Oh, singing for a chorus concert. Nice. For me, I can't sing to save my life. I have the vocal range of a dying sparrow who was hopefully being put out of their misery. And by hopefully, I mean by everyone else having to engage with the voice. Yeah. That is not something I was told more than once. It was given to me in writing and told, dear God, please never again stop. Yeah, my family didn't like it. And by that, I mean my singing. They made sure I saw the note. Yeah. More importantly, though, just if you guys haven't, there's a link below to Tex's video. It's so freaking good, man! I have no idea if what we covered today will also be in the Mechwarrior 5 Clans game. But some of the parts they covered already were, so maybe it will. Maybe we'll get to see more of the invasion from more perspectives. I don't know, and honestly, I just want to see what's going on. Say they bid warriors away or two other groups. I don't know, but it was awesome. This is like the high of finding out about the Black Watch, except without the inevitable knowledge that they degenerate into, well, Jade Falcon. Yeah. Not all of them, but some. Yeah. That little part right there kind of hurts. Either way, if you haven't already, hit it up. Text is awesome. Do that.